Good afternoon, everybody. So as Mary introduced me earlier, my name is Brian Woodman, and I work for an organization called Montage here in Toronto. But today's presentation that I am giving you is really on behalf of Compass, a person-directed planning collaborative. So I want to tell you a little bit about Compass first and foremost, and then my hope is that I can give you a few tips really on what you can be doing now as family members to be proactive. And I'm really hoping that some of those tips will be helpful, because they're not anything magical or anything that is not common sense, but I hope that if you hear it, it might strike a chord and be helpful. So the Compass Planning Collaborative is a group of 7 agencies in Toronto. They are Community Living Toronto, Corbrook, Family Service Toronto, Geneva Centre for Autism, JVS Toronto, Montage, and Springboard. Now, the 7 organizations work collaboratively in doing person-directed planning, both through funded planning that would come through the DSO, and also the group provides person-directed planning as a fee-for-service option. So the interesting thing about the group is that between the 7 organizations, there's over 55, and I was being conservative in my calculations, but over 55 years of planning experience combined. And oftentimes the planners who are involved in the collaborative will meet together just to share ideas, share resources. They have a meeting every 6 weeks to talk about what they've learned, to hear about new things, and to talk about challenging situations where they need each other's expertise to be a better planner for people, essentially. So I want to start off by saying that the idea of services is a little bit of a mirage, I think. And I say that because a lot of people wait for services and have an idea about what that means and what that might look like. But in reality, when they come to that place in life where they're faced with looking at services more seriously, it often doesn't look like what you thought it would, or it may not coincide really with what you had planned for that to look like. So my hope is that we can talk a little bit today about some tips that can help empower you as family members, and I hope we have a lot of family members in the room today, because that's what this is really geared towards. But some tips that will help you to have a vision for what life looks like in the future. So the first tip I have is that you spend some time thinking about the future. More often than not, when we are connected to families living in the community, families really haven't given any time to process what the future should or could look like, and come to us really surprised at how quickly life has passed and how much they need help right now. And they often don't know what they're even looking for, because they haven't spent time thinking, because they've been so busy just maintaining everyday needs and living. So I encourage you to give some thought to the future. The families that we encounter who have spent time thinking early and contemplating what life will look like, it's really amazing how different the comparison would be from the families who really haven't given that thought. So if I were to put myself in your shoes, I would want to be the family that really had a better idea of what the future could look like. So that's the first tip, and hopefully encouraging tip that I can give. The second one would be to tell your story often. And really this is about getting connected to people. There's a lot of groups, there's a lot of churches out there, a lot of religious organizations and community centers where people come together, really not even related to any specific topic other than something that they're interested in. And it creates opportunities for people to talk about their story and to build allies even without even recognizing it. And we have some great organizations that are family driven, like Partners for Planning. I've got to get out of the plan thinking, who can provide some of those more formal networks and information. But the more people that you can gather around you, the better. The third tip I have is start planning now. And by planning, I'm not talking about formal planning, but it is incredibly helpful when we're speaking to people through a planning process that's more formal, when they've actually looked at the small clues that life has presented throughout the duration of somebody's life. It may be something like an uncle who your son or daughter really, really enjoyed when they were 5 years old, and thinking about what was it about him that they liked. Because those clues will really help define what the future can look like and help people who can provide planning support in the future to know what direction to go. We had an example of somebody who we started planning with recently who didn't really know what they wanted to do. The family didn't really have a lot of clarity on that. And when our planner went into their home, they immediately saw the clues everywhere in the person's bedroom. And out of that came a very specific goal that made that person's community experience and life fulfilled beyond their wildest dreams. And it was all about seeing those clues. So don't downplay the little things. If somebody likes going to the beach, or if they like, those things may seem like they're just everyday things, but they will be helpful in the future. The fourth suggestion I have, or tip, is that there are tons of resources out there, and they may not apply to your situation right now, but I think it's important to know what they are and to educate yourselves about what those resources can offer. One particular resource that I've come in contact with that is very helpful is a resource called Steps to Independence Guide, and you will find it on Connectability if you look for Steps to Independence, and it was developed by Community Living Toronto many years ago. But what this tool does is it enables you to go through an assessment of everyday things, whether it's doing laundry or turning a light on and that type of thing, and it helps to develop a picture of what your loved one can do independently, even if it's a simple thing, and what they need support with. So it helps to draw a support map for the future. And so that's just an example of a tool that if you gather these types of resources, it can be very helpful. There's lots of tools out there about alternative housing models and families who have blazed trails before all of us and done really creative things that are documented that we can learn from and pull pieces from. So it starts to inform a bigger picture, and I would really encourage you to get to find resources and keep them, and to take a look at them and see how they may help in the future. The fifth tip is to get connected to a good planning facilitator. And by a good planning facilitator, I mean that you need to know what their values are as a person, and you need to know that their values line up with what your vision is for the future. There's a lot of programs available in Toronto, but I would like to suggest that programs aren't the answer for everything. Services and programs are a piece of someone's life, but as soon as they become defined by those programs and those services, that I think that we haven't seen the true picture of what somebody's life could look like. So find a planner who may share that vision, or who may share those values, and connect with them and get to know them through your conversations, because the outcome will be very different if you are on the same page with what the future should look like. And lastly, my last suggestion would be to never say never too quickly. So if there's an idea that you hear, or someone makes a suggestion about something that seems really off the wall, don't try to resist saying that's not possible, because I encourage you to give it a day or two to think about what the essence of that suggestion was, because sometimes our own fears are actually the things that limit the potential of an idea. And if we can take our fears and look at them and name them, then oftentimes there's something in the idea that can actually be implemented and become reality. So I know those are very subjective suggestions, and they may not be very helpful, but I just want to go back to the fact that there is a mirage out there that we all think will be there, and our service sector is changing every day, and the province is changing every day, and families have spoken, and I really believe that that choice is something that is going to be a lot more prevalent. So you need to know what you're choosing and what you're wanting, because you'll have that opportunity in the future, hopefully, to use some of that information. So I hope that was helpful, everybody.
Thanks, Brian.